Good day, everybody. This is Dana Massey with the Sun Your Soul and the Mindful Mama. Today I'm going to be talking about the ego, but I want to talk about it in the sense of those moments where you feel so whole and centered, and then the next moment you're completely off your center. It's called trigger. So I want to read something from the book Meet Your Soul by Lisa Romeo. We are filled with invisible but very energetic complexes and programmed personas that can take us over and morph into ego identification. This can happen unnoticeably and in an instant. We may feel centered and whole in ourselves, and then we have a quick chat with our mother, and suddenly a hunger comes over us and we reach for the brownies. We may be in a great mood, flush with self-love and acceptance, and then one quick flash of the latest size zero models of a fashion week brings up self-hatred. To combat these daily energetic shrapnel, we establish a strong, clear, conscious connection to the soul voice. We do this through practice of willingness to imagine and have a little faith. All the healing, love, and answers are closer than we can imagine, just waiting for us to come back home. I talk about this a lot, triggers. Triggers are all around us, and they're not going to magically disappear one day. We don't reach a certain age and then we're not triggered anymore. Triggers are going to exist until you identify the wound or react differently to the trigger. So when the trigger's spiraling up and getting activated, typically we naturally start feeding that trigger. We go into panic, we go into fear, we go into anger, whatever that is, whatever the low vibration emotion is. It could be self-hatred. It could be all of a sudden I have self-esteem, all of a sudden the self-esteem is leaving me. So when the trigger comes up and it enters us, we have a choice to react in our old pattern, meaning feeding it, or we can step up and react differently. A way that you can react differently is just making that decision. I'm not going to feed this. So the trigger enters your field and you're like, no, this is my space. I'm not going to go into jealousy. I'm not going to go into fear. I'm not going to go into panic mode. So it's almost pushing away the energy and saying, I'm not engaging in that pattern anymore. Another way that you can heal triggers is through identification and healing of the wound. So it's almost like tracing back through time. So the trigger happens, and what I'll have my clients to do is journal about it. So the trigger happens, go into a trance meditative state and just free write. Don't write from up here. Don't write the story that your mind wants to tell you, but write the story that your soul wants to tell you, that your heart wants to tell you. And amazing information will come through, and that's when you have those aha moments. Oh, this is a pattern. This is a generational pattern in my family that I'm just almost like unconsciously giving into. So when you automatic write or free write, whatever you want to call it, the information from your soul comes through and you begin to create a new story. Oh, this is why I do that. So I do have control over changing this pattern. So other ways that you can work with a trigger is shelving it. So the trigger happens, you're not in an appropriate place, maybe even state of mind, maybe a party's going on, maybe you're about to give a presentation at work, or you're even about to go to dinner with your friends and you're thinking, I want to stay centered, I want to stay in my state of mind that I'm in right now, so I'm going to shelf it. So shelving it is just what it means. You put it aside and you come to it. Maybe it's the next day, maybe it's later in that evening, and you get your journal out and you start journaling about the trigger and how it makes you feel. And how old do you think you were when you first got this trigger, when you first got that activation? If you just ask yourself that simple question, how old was I when I first felt this? Not up here, but in here. And when you ask that question, I promise you an age will pop up, a number will pop up in your head, right away. Trust that your soul is talking to you and trying to help you unwind this situation. Now, you don't always have to process every experience and every piece of information. That's why I talked about in the beginning of the video. It's also okay for you to just create, uh, correct the pattern. Almost like behavioral therapy. The trigger comes in and you literally say no. And that's good enough. So that's a person that doesn't feel the need that they need to process every single thing. Sometimes the process of processing and healing every single thing actually reactivates negative events from the past, and sometimes gets people trapped in the cycle of the pattern even more. So that's something you want to be cautious of too, and really understand what works best for you. So really notice if you are choosing to do the processing piece, which is a beautiful piece, if it's reactivating things and making it worse and making you stuck in the pattern, I would suggest trying just correcting the behavior and not giving in to the trigger. Namaste.